US President Donald Trump and his wife Melania have tested positive for COVID-19, but the White House doctor insists the president will be on the job as usual despite being in quarantine. Also, Armenia says it's ready to discuss a ceasefire in the separatist region of Nagorno-Karabakh. This is heavy fighting between Armenian and Azerbaijani forces has continued for 6 straight days, killing dozens and leaving scores wounded. And firefighters in California are still struggling to put out blazes ravaging the state in what is already the worst fire season on record. Hello, welcome back to the France 24 newsroom. I'm Nat Young, and we begin in Washington, D.C., where President Donald Trump and his wife Melania have tested positive for the coronavirus. Trump and his wife were tested after one of his closest aides, Hope Hicks, began showing symptoms earlier this week. Hicks having travelled to campaign events around the country with Trump's entourage, including several other family members. Monty Francis has the latest.
The various doctors, I said, is this just like flu?
In a tweet, Donald Trump made the announcement, saying, "Tonight, the First Lady and I tested positive for COVID-19. We will begin our quarantine and recovery process immediately. We will get through this together." The news comes after Hope Hicks, one of the president's closest advisors, was revealed to have the coronavirus. She traveled with the president several times this week aboard Air Force One and was seen close to other campaign officials during a rally in Pennsylvania on Saturday, not wearing a mask. In a White House memo, Trump's personal doctor, Sean Conley, said, "The president and First Lady are both well at this time, and they plan to remain at home within the White House during their convalescence. I expect the president will continue to carry out his duties without disruption while recovering."
I felt it was a pandemic.
After learning of his positive results, President Trump said he and the First Lady would self-isolate, but did not say for how long. The First Lady said on Twitter she and the president were feeling good and that she had postponed all upcoming engagements. Vice President Mike Pence said he was praying for the first couple's swift recovery. Trump has consistently downplayed the seriousness of the health crisis, which has killed more than 200,000 Americans. At 74 and overweight, Trump is in a vulnerable group for those who contract the virus. The news has thrown new uncertainty into the final stretch leading up to the presidential election, with rallies and debates planned in the coming days and weeks.
And earlier I spoke to Robert Gucci, a sociologist from Lancaster University in the UK and also an editor of a book on the Trump presidency, and I asked him what impact will this have on the presidential campaign.
This is actually the worst thing for both candidates. Neither of them want to talk too much about COVID in a debate setting or in a town hall setting. It opens up way too many uncertainties for the American population about, is this more than the flu, as some of the Trump supporters still demand it just is? What does this mean for the economy, for my jobs, for security? It just is something that neither candidate wants to be able to address because neither of them have the way to fight off COVID for good until there's a vaccine or something else. So this is the worst thing for both of them if they have to stand next to each other or virtually even to talk about how they would address this.
In other news, Armenia says it's ready to discuss a ceasefire in the separatist region of Nagorno-Karabakh. Heavy fighting between Armenian and Azerbaijani forces has continued for 6 straight days, killing dozens and leaving scores of others wounded. The territory lies within Azerbaijan but is controlled by local ethnic Armenian troops backed by Armenia. Now, as the conflict intensifies, French President Emmanuel Macron says he's sure Syrian jihadists have been deployed to the disputed region. The conflict is growing into a greater diplomatic effort involving Turkey and Russia and now increasingly other world powers.
This footage shows what's believed to be an Armenian drone being shot down in the Nagorno-Karabakh region, where the Azerbaijani and Armenian-backed separatists have intensified fighting that's already claimed the lives of 130 people. Most recently, shelling by Azerbaijan killed 4 and wounded 11 in the small town of Martuni. As volunteers in the Armenian capital give blood to help the dozens who've been wounded, a joint appeal from Russia, the United States, and France to halt the fighting and return to the negotiating table. In what he called a serious development, the French president said he's learned Syrian jihadist militants have been sent into the region via Turkey.
300 combattants ont quitté la Syrie pour rejoindre Bakou en passant par Gaziantep. Ces combattants sont connus, tracés, identifiés. Ils viennent de groupes djihadistes qui opèrent dans la région d'Alep. Je dis que c'est inacceptable.
The Nagorno-Karabakh region is within Azerbaijan's borders and internationally recognized as part of the country, but it's populated by ethnic Armenians who consider themselves independent. Responding to calls for talks, the Armenian prime minister told the French newspaper Le Figaro, Nagorno-Karabakh cannot disarm because it would lead to genocide. The people who live there face an existential threat. Turkey has long supported Azerbaijan, calling on the Armenians to end their occupation of the region. Russia says it's making progress in its diplomatic efforts with Ankara. Both countries' foreign ministers say they're in close coordination, working to stabilize the situation.
In France, President Emmanuel Macron has unveiled details of government plans to battle Islamic radicalism in the country. The government is to present a draft law aimed at strengthening secularism against what the French leader describes as Islamist separatism in the nation. A recent poll shows the majority of French people approve of the initiative. However, critics are concerned that it could deepen anti-Muslim sentiment, which they say has been on the rise in recent years. This is what the president had to say earlier.
What we have to tackle is Islamist separatism. It is a conscious, theorized, political religious project which takes shape through repeated deviations from the values of the Republic, often resulting in the constitution of a counter-society.
And Clovis Casali has more on the president's speech.
The French president used strong words saying that the Republic was threatened by radical Islam, but at the same time it was essential not to stigmatize Muslims as a whole, who are of course free to practice their religion. Emmanuel Macron is targeting political Islam, who wants to take control. Those were the words of the French president. A bill will be discussed in cabinet in December with several key points. First, regarding Muslim associations, some that are financed by foreign powers and that need to end. These associations will be dismantled when they defend radical Islam. He also spoke about ghettos in French suburbs. In other words, that in some impoverished neighborhoods, the French government had not invested enough, and that needs to change. He said he wanted more police presence and more judges in those parts of France, show the people there that they are not being ignored, neglected. And the French president also talked about imams. He wants imams to be trained here in France and no longer be sent from countries such as Morocco, Algeria and Turkey. He stressed that those countries were on the same page and agreed with him on that point.
Firefighters in California are still struggling to put out blazes ravaging the state in what's already the worst fire season on record. The Napa Valley region in the north of the state is home to many vineyards, and several wineries have gone up in smoke. It's believed some 4 million acres have been burnt so far this year. James Vazanier has the latest.
Thousands of burnt bottles and torched facilities. Very little is left of this winery, which its owner was unable to save from the flames.
You know, I put my heart and soul into this project that we took almost 15 years to build. We sell 100% of our wines direct to the consumer who come to the winery. A little bit mail order and online, but essentially everything is sold here. So when we're out of business...
The glass fire broke out last Sunday and rapidly turned into a blaze, torching everything in its path as it continues to make its way across the wine region of Napa Valley in Napa County and Sonoma County. 80,000 people have been ordered to evacuate as wineries and homes have been burnt to the ground. Only 5% of the blaze is currently contained. And speaking outside a torched school, the state's governor fears stronger winds could bring further damage to the region.
2,100 firefighters are working this fire exclusively. We have firefighters from all across the country. We're in it for the long haul. We're not just here for a moment. We're here to rebuild and to reimagine your school and all the kids out there. We're going to get through this.
At least 30 people have died in blazes on the west coast this year, and the Glass Fire is one of almost 30 wildfires still active in California. And the blazes don't seem to be dying down yet. Forecasters have issued a red flag warning across large parts of California, the highest alert level for wildfire danger.
And that's it for this edition. Do stay with us here on France 24.